Judge Lemon suddenly stormed out of court during a tense hearing on June 26, and now the real reason is finally coming to light. Shockingly, Ryan Reynolds may have accidentally exposed something no one saw coming, a claim that Blake Lively bribed a witness to bury Justin Baldoni's case. At first, many believed Judge Lemon was biased, even suggesting he was secretly on Blake's side. But that narrative has completely fallen apart. Instead, the so-called affidavit at the center of the case is now being described as entirely fabricated, allegedly created to frame the wrong person. Everything changed when Ryan Reynolds dropped a bombshell that shook the entire industry. What was once seen as Blake Lively's clean and decisive legal victory now looks far more complicated, and possibly far more troubling. Rather than vague hints or emotional reactions, Ryan reportedly came forward with detailed evidence, timestamps, leaked emails, and even confidential legal documents. This wasn't a random outburst. It appeared calculated, direct, and impossible to ignore. His now viral statement, "The truth needs to come out no matter the cost," has completely shifted public perception. What was once celebrated as a $400 million courtroom win is now being questioned, with accusations of manipulation, deception, and a carefully constructed narrative. To truly understand the impact of these revelations, attention has turned to James Vadhusa, the Daily Mail reporter who originally signed an affidavit tied to the case. Now, that document itself is under intense scrutiny, raising even more questions about what really happened behind the scenes. The affidavit quickly became the foundation of Blake Lively's entire defense. This wasn't just another piece of evidence. It was the core argument her legal team relied on to build their case. According to the document, Blake's publicist, Leslie Sloan, had never taken part in any smear campaign against Justin Baldoni. Instead, it flipped the narrative completely, portraying Baldoni as the aggressor while casting Sloan as the victim. Judge Lemon leaned heavily on this affidavit, referencing it repeatedly while ultimately dismissing Baldoni's case. That moment didn't just secure Blake a win, it handed her a powerful advantage. Her legal team even used it to justify demanding $1.3 million in attorney fees. For a while, it looked like an airtight victory. But everything began to unravel when Ryan Reynolds stepped in with explosive leaks that shattered that narrative. According to the emails he shared, the story behind the affidavit is far darker than anyone expected. The journalist, James Vadhusa, allegedly didn't sign it willingly. Instead, he was reportedly pressured by executives at the Daily Mail, pushed into approving a statement he knew wasn't true. Ryan's decision to go public wasn't impulsive. Insiders claim he had been struggling for months, torn between supporting Blake and questioning how her legal team handled the case. His social media exposé marked a breaking point, a moment where he decided he could no longer stay silent. What was once just a legal battle has now turned into something far bigger. It's a personal unraveling playing out in front of the world. Hollywood has seen its fair share of scandals, but this one feels different. Ryan, known for his humor and charm, has unexpectedly taken on the role of a whistleblower, exposing cracks in what many believed was a flawless power couple image. And as more details surface, the pressure continues to build. Now the question everyone is asking is simple. Is this about justice or self-preservation? Behind the scenes, Ryan's frustration had been growing for months. Sources suggest he was increasingly uneasy about the way the case was handled. Eventually, he reached a breaking point and released private messages that pointed directly at the Daily Mail's alleged involvement. One of those messages reportedly showed James Vadhusa describing the intense pressure he faced from his superiors. Ryan, clearly outraged, made it clear he couldn't stand by while false claims destroyed someone's life. At that moment, the situation stopped being just about the courtroom. It became deeply personal. Then came the biggest twist yet. James Vadhusa, the same reporter whose affidavit played a key role in Blake's victory, decided he was no longer willing to take the blame. In a dramatic move, he hired high-profile defense attorney Mark Scargo to help him retract his statement. What followed sent shockwaves across the industry. Vadusa publicly claimed that he had been coerced into signing the affidavit by Daily Mail executives. He described constant pressure, implied threats, and a carefully orchestrated effort to manipulate the narrative. This wasn't just a revelation. It was a direct attack on the very foundation of Blake Lively's legal. James Vadusa claims he was abandoned by his own employer the moment doubts about the affidavit began to surface, and calling this a game-changer would be an understatement. That affidavit wasn't just another document. It was the key piece of evidence. Judge Lemon relied on it heavily when dismissing Justin Baldoni's $400 million lawsuit, referencing it repeatedly in his ruling. Without it, Blake Lively's entire defense doesn't just weaken, it risks collapsing entirely. Vadusa's retraction hits like a shockwave. It's like pulling the keystone out of an arch. Suddenly, everything starts to crumble. Now Baldoni's legal team has solid ground to appeal, and the court has a reason to revisit a case many believed was already closed. The narrative has shifted. The question is no longer whether Baldoni's claims lacked merit, but whether they were buried under falsehoods, and the consequences go far beyond just one lawsuit. If Vadusa's allegations are proven true, this could damage more than reputations. It could raise serious concerns about the integrity of the legal process itself. How did such a critical piece of evidence go unchallenged? Why was it accepted without deeper scrutiny? Those questions are now echoing everywhere, from courtrooms to media boardrooms. The fallout is already unfolding. The Daily Mail is facing intense backlash, with accusations of coercion and unethical practices sparking widespread outrage. Public opinion is shifting rapidly, and social media is flooded with calls for accountability. Once seen as untouchable, Blake Lively now finds herself at the center of a growing storm. What once looked like a flawless legal strategy is starting to resemble a fragile house of cards. Her publicist, Leslie Sloan, is also under increasing scrutiny, with allegations suggesting she may have played a role in shaping a narrative against Baldoni. Meanwhile, Ryan Reynolds has added even more fuel to the fire. His decision to go public has raised questions of its own. Is he trying to distance himself, or is this a genuine attempt to expose the truth? Whatever the motive, one thing is clear: he's not backing down. What was once seen as one of Hollywood's most admired power couples is now caught in a controversy that grows more complicated by the day. With each new revelation, the stakes continue to rise, and this story is far from over. At the center of it all is Judge Lemon, whose ruling leaned heavily on the now-disputed affidavit. By citing it multiple times, the court painted Baldoni as the aggressor and Blake as the victim. But now, with the credibility of that affidavit in serious doubt, even the judge's decision is under intense scrutiny. Critics are asking tough questions. How could such a pivotal document go unchallenged? Was the court too quick to accept the narrative presented? These are no longer quiet concerns. They're serious questions that could reshape how this entire case is viewed moving forward. These weren't just casual concerns. They were direct accusations that cast serious doubt on the entire system. If a single affidavit could influence a ruling so heavily, what does that say about the safeguards meant to ensure fairness in court? And then came the moment that shocked everyone. During what was supposed to be a routine courtroom session on June 26, Judge Lemon made an unprecedented move. He walked out in the middle of proceedings. This wasn't a brief pause or a calculated break. It was a complete and sudden exit that left the courtroom in stunned silence. The timing raised even more questions. Just moments earlier, explosive revelations from Ryan Reynolds and the formal retraction by James Vadusa had been introduced into the case. The tension in the room was already at a breaking point, and the judge's abrupt departure only intensified the chaos. Speculation spread instantly. Was this a sign of frustration from a judge overwhelmed by the scale of the controversy? Or was it something more deliberate, an attempt to distance himself from growing allegations of bias inside the courtroom? Everything unraveled. Justin Baldoni's legal team quickly seized the moment, framing the walkout as a turning point, a sign that the case was far from settled and that justice might still prevail. On the other side, Blake Lively's legal team appeared visibly shaken, scrambling to regain control as whispers of doubt spread throughout the room. Even experienced legal analysts were left struggling to explain what had just happened. Some called it unprecedented. Others described it as a moment that could redefine the entire trajectory of the case. One thing was clear: the courtroom drama had reached a whole new level, and it still wasn't over. Some analysts even suggested that the judge's sudden departure pointed to deeper cracks in the case than anyone had anticipated. As the dust began to settle, speculation around Judge Lemon's motives reached a boiling point. Was he too closely tied to Blake Lively's legal team, as critics claimed? Or was he simply pushed to his limit, caught in the middle of one of Hollywood's most chaotic legal battles? Either way, the walkout made one thing undeniable: the impact of Ryan Reynolds' revelations and James Vatus's claims could not be ignored. For Blake, the stakes have never been higher. What once looked like a flawless courtroom strategy now appears fragile, like a house of cards on the verge of collapse. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni's legal team is gaining momentum, preparing to dismantle the narrative that once protected her. Ryan's decision to go public didn't just increase the pressure, it completely flipped the script. What started as a private legal dispute has now become a public reckoning. This is no longer a simple she said, situation. It's a full-scale crisis with consequences that stretch far beyond the courtroom. Public attention is intensifying, and the tide of opinion is beginning to shift as more questions demand answers. And just when it seemed the situation couldn't get any more explosive, another name entered the spotlight: Van Zandt. Now surrounded by controversy, this alleged shell company is being linked to claims that it was used as a hidden tool to obtain private messages that later became key evidence in Blake's defense. If these allegations prove true, the entire case could be turned upside down. What once appeared to be a strategic legal move could instead be exposed as something far more questionable. The rumors surrounding Van Zandt are no longer quiet speculation. They're loud enough to shake the industry. Legal experts are already dissecting the implications, with some warning that this could have serious consequences for Blake's career, because this isn't just about courtroom tactics anymore. If the origins of that evidence are proven to be compromised, it could not only weaken her legal victory, but also damage her public image in ways that even the strongest PR strategies might not repair. These allegations strike at the core of her defense. It's one thing to fight claims from Justin Baldoni's legal team. It's something entirely different to face accusations that your own side may have engaged in a calculated campaign built on questionable actions. The optics are devastating. What began as a legal dispute has now evolved into a full-blown PR crisis, one that threatens to pull everyone involved into the fallout. And through it all, one question still lingers: what role does Ryan Reynolds truly play in all of it? The Van Zandt scandal doesn't just put Blake Lively under the spotlight, it pulls Ryan Reynolds right into it. Once seen as an unexpected whistleblower, Ryan is now facing serious questions of his own. Did he know about Van Zandt from the beginning? Was he involved in these alleged tactics? Or is this his attempt to distance himself from a storm that's rapidly spiraling out of control? Hollywood insiders are divided. Some believe his decision to leak documents and speak out was a calculated move, a way to protect himself before everything collapses. Others think he's genuinely disillusioned, determined to expose the truth no matter the personal cost. Either way, his involvement has made this scandal even more explosive. The fallout is already spreading across the industry. Legal experts are calling for deeper investigations, while public opinion is shifting faster than anyone expected. What started as a courtroom battle has now evolved into a full-blown industry-wide controversy, and the consequences aren't limited to just one side. Daily Mail is now firmly in the spotlight as well. With Ryan's leaks and James Vatus's claims, the media outlet is facing intense scrutiny. Alleged emails suggest coordination with Blake's legal team in shaping the affidavit, raising serious ethical concerns. public backlash has been swift and unforgiving. Calls for accountability are growing louder and the pressure is mounting. For a publication already familiar with controversy, this could mark a breaking point. Meanwhile, Ryan's actions have transformed his public image. To some, he's a whistleblower taking a stand. To others, he's making a strategic move to regain control of the narrative. But behind the headlines, another story is beginning to surface. Rumors of tension between Ryan and Blake are gaining traction, with many questioning whether this scandal has created cracks in what once appeared to be a solid relationship. Hollywood thrives on drama, but this feels different. This isn't just about legal battles or public image anymore. It's about trust, loyalty, and the consequences of decisions made behind closed doors. Ryan Reynolds' choice to reveal explosive details about Blake Lively's legal fight has shifted the spotlight directly onto their personal lives. And insiders are beginning to whisper that this may not be just about justice. It may also be about survival. Some believe this is Ryan Reynolds' way of stepping back before the storm consumes everything. A calculated move to protect his reputation as Blake Lively's controversies continue to grow. Others see it differently, as a bold stand driven by frustration, a refusal to stay silent in the face of what he claims are lies and coercion. Whatever the truth may be, Ryan's actions have split Hollywood in two. On one side, supporters are praising him as the whistleblower no one expected, someone finally willing to speak out. Social media is buzzing, with many rallying behind him as a voice for accountability. On the other side, critics argue he's only making things worse, fueling an already explosive situation. They question whether his leaks are truly about justice or simply self-preservation. And then there's the question no one can ignore. What's really happening behind the scenes between Ryan and Blake? Once seen as one of Hollywood's strongest couples, their relationship is now under intense scrutiny. Rumors are swirling, with insiders suggesting that the mounting pressure from Blake's legal troubles may have pushed things to a breaking point. The same couple once known for their playful online exchanges and flawless public appearances now appears to be facing very real cracks beneath the surface. Blake, for her part, has remained largely silent. Her legal team has dismissed the allegations as baseless, while she stays out of the spotlight, relying on those closest to her as the narrative continues to slip out of control. And that narrative is changing fast. With each new revelation, her carefully built image is taking hit after hit. The Van Zandt allegations, claims of smear campaigns linked to her publicist Leslie Sloan, and now Ryan's explosive leaks have all combined to create a perfect storm. Public opinion is shifting, and not in her favor. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni's legal team is moving aggressively. They've filed an appeal, citing potential fraud in the dismissal of their $400 million case. If the court decides to reopen it, Blake's team could be forced to answer for everything: the affidavit, the Van Zandt controversy, and the growing accusations of manipulation. The stakes couldn't be higher, because this is no longer just a courtroom dispute. It's a full-scale Hollywood saga, with careers, reputations, and relationships all hanging in the balance. Whether Ryan's actions lead to justice or drive an irreversible wedge between him and Blake remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: this story is far from over. If the case is reopened, the spotlight will only grow harsher. Tough questions will demand answers, and the truth, whatever it may be, will finally come to light. And for Blake Lively, the consequences could be nothing short of career-defining. This is no longer just about a court case. For Blake Lively, it's about her reputation, her career, and even her relationship with Ryan Reynolds. And Ryan's role in all of this remains anything but simple. By stepping forward and exposing what he claims are lies, he's taken a risk that could cost him both personally and professionally. But one thing is clear: he's no longer willing to stay silent. What began as a straightforward legal battle has transformed into something far more explosive. Now it's a scandal filled with alleged fabricated documents, media manipulation, and deep personal fallout. With every new revelation, the stakes continue to rise, and the truth becomes harder to pin down. So the questions remain: Will Justin Baldoni finally get his chance to fight back in court? Will Blake's defense hold or collapse under mounting pressure? And where does Ryan stand in the end? As a whistleblower who exposed the truth? Or as someone who made an already volatile situation even more chaotic? One thing is certain: this story is far from finished, and the next twist